Hi folks, welcome to the latest update on Salterbeck. In the last two videos, you'll have seen how I finished the original stable airing board. We also had a short running session of shunting the TPO, and so it's on to the new board. So as a reminder, this is intended to be a short siding leading to a wagon repair yard, similar to the sort of wagon repair yard you had at Curruck, with the scenery behind it based on areas around Workington Station. So starting with the harbour area, which I'm basing on the area just to the north of Workington Station on the Cumbrian Coastal Railway. So the picture you can see at the moment is from marinas.com, and it shows you part of the area that I'm trying to represent. So at the bottom you can see a railway crossing a small bridge, and you have a river flowing out into the harbour. To the left of that, you've got a small building, which I think is for maintenance of small boats beside the road bridge. And so to try and represent that, I started by adding some stone wall along the harbour side and some bridge supports using the same technique as all the other walls on the layout, so buff paint and then a black wash. Given this is a harbour wall, I've added some Humbrol green weathering powder applied using my finger to kind of represent the sort of green gunk that you typically get on harbour walls. The bridge itself is made from some leftover wagon kits, which just happened to be the right size for the bridge, so they were glued together and given a sort of light weathering with some black wash. I then used some ratio textured sheet to knock up the small building, and given this a light weathering with some black wash, and again added some green weathering powder to the bottom to represent some moss growing at the base of the building. And then to finish off the scene, I've added some of the 4mm dead grass that I've been using on the rest of the layout, mixed with some 2mm green grass from Peco, some grass clumps from Army Painter, and I've also used some of the Woodland Scenics autumnal foliage to represent the trees behind the building, sort of between the building and the road. For the water, I wasn't keen for this to be a nice sort of tranquil blue. I wanted a sort of grotty, greeny, browny colour, more in keeping with how I remember the water around the Cumbrian coast being when I was growing up, where the health of the seas, rivers and waterways wasn't really a concern. To get the effect I wanted, I mixed green and brown acrylic paints with a little bit of black. I didn't want a uniform colour, so I mixed the colours on the board as they were drying. Let it dry a little bit, adding a few more different shades. Added a mix of water as well to get all the colours kind of blending and mixing together. The photo you can see at the moment is sort of taken halfway through, where I still need to apply a few more bits. Once I was happy with the colour, I then applied a thick layer of PVA glue to give the impressions of water. They seemed to work okay at the time, but after it was finished, I noticed there were a few bubbles in it, which wasn't what I wanted. When I tried to remove the bubbles, all the PVA came away, which was a bit annoying. But luckily, getting it all off wasn't that much of an issue. Didn't damage any of the buildings that I'd made. Did take off some of the base paint, but I've reapplied that, and hopefully this is going to work this time. The scene behind the harbour that I'm trying to represent is, you can see in this photo, where you've got quite a distinct old factory on the left hand side, and there's a church and a house, all sort of behind a wall. The problem I've got with representing this is that where these buildings would be is where I've got my track. It's effectively where the fiddle yard runs, basically right along where these buildings are in the image. And so what I've decided to do is create a small tunnel to fit over the track onto which I'm going to put the buildings, which when viewed from your typical viewing angles should look all right. If you do look directly along the line of the track, sort of leaving the board up towards the fiddle yard, it will look wrong, but from most angles, I think it'll look all right. So on top of the tunnel, I've added a roof and built a bit of the house sort of near the roof, sorry, near the road. If you remember in the last video I mentioned I found a lot of old grain parish buildings from my old Magnum layout. One of these was just a bit of roof, didn't have a building with it, so I've used that as the house roof. And the sort of image for the building side is a screen grab from Google Street View. Beside the house, I've added a brick wall using some leftover Metcalf stone wall sheets, but you don't really see this as in front of it. I've added some trees, again from some made from Woodland Scenics autumnal foliage, and also using that winter trees technique I showed you in the last video, where I've got these old farish trees and glued some polyfiber on them and sprayed them with some paint. And then in front of all of that, we got the stone wall you see in the photo, which has made in the same way as all the other ones. Should also mention that all of this is temporary, so that when the layout is put away, all these elements can be removed, or if something falls off in the fiddle yard, it can be easily retrieved. And then beside all that, I've printed off an image of the old factory, glued this to some card, and then at the bottom applied using some leftover card, have it as a sort of support so it doesn't fall over. I did use a black marker around the edges so you couldn't see the card, but looking at this photo again, I think I probably need to either add a bit more of that black marker or wrap the image around the card or something, because yeah, I don't like the way that the white edges are showing. And then to finish off the scene, as with all the other bits, 4mm dead grass scattered along the base. And all I need to do now is come up with a church to go on top. And the final bit I've been up to is the wagon yard itself. As you can see in the image, I think the main change is that I've decided to add a few sidings to give it a better representation of the sort of wagon yards I was thinking I was sort of basing it on. So the one at Currick or even the one at Workington, both of them have got way more sidings and track than what I've got. Perhaps controversially, these aren't connected to the rest of the layout, so I'm imagining that behind the buildings is where the rest of the wagon yard and the connections to the main line are. The reason I didn't want to connect them up was firstly that I've already laid, ballasted, weathered all the track. I'm happy with it. But more importantly, I think it would look too busy with all the additional point work in quite a small area. So I'm gonna leave it as it is. I mean, I might change my opinion in a later stage, but I'm going to stick with it for now. And so I've added the track. Ballasting was fairly simple. I did the hard standing like before. Still need to paint the edges and weather it, but that's for another video, I think. And so if you enjoyed this latest update on Salterbeck, let me know what you think in the comments section below, and I'll see you all next time.